David J. Stern. I'm the commissioner of the NBA currently, but will not be when you finally get this thing laid down. And I'm a friend of Gordon Gunn's.
So therefore, for lawyer purposes, you're giving this interview freely for use in a documentary about Gordon Gunn, yes?
Of course, you guys are going to accept that without a piece of paper?
That's
I wouldn't want to represent you. Okay. Yes, of my own volition, I hereby solemnly swear that I will.
When did you first meet Gordon?
I met Gordon probably back in early 80s, 81, 82. I was trying to persuade him that he should buy the Cleveland Cavaliers from the then owner, Ted Stepien.
Franchise was in trouble?
I would say that would be a generous way to describe it, but it was not doing well. Nobody was attending the games, and the team was a competitive disaster, although I don't remember its specific record. It was not in a good trend.
They won 14 games one year, so they're 19.
Okay, there you go.
Something terrible like that. And I understand he wasn't so quick to bite. But he owned hockey teams, but he wasn't so quick.
He owned hockey teams, and he was not quick. He was what I used to refer to as a value shopper. Gordon likes to buy at the bottom of the market. God bless him for that. And his then sidekick, Dick Watson, who was both his friend, his legal advisor, and his partner in some matters, was there all the way with him. So I got to spend a lot of good time in Cleveland meeting with Gordon and Dick and assorted other advisors to Gordon, trying to explain to them why this amorphous mass of nothing had great value to a prospective purchaser, especially one like Gordon, who was deeply committed to the town of Cleveland.
Does it speak well of your salesmanship or of his ability to buy low?
No, it speaks completely to a drop in price low enough to interest Gordon and Dick, as long as we threw in some extra goodies.
The deal, too, was there were several businesses. It wasn't just the basketball team. There were other businesses.
That's correct. Gordon doesn't like to talk about that because it was such a good deal from his perspective, lo these 30 years later. But yes, Mr. Stepien was in the classified advertising business with something called Nationwide something or other. And although we know what the internet has done to that business, back then it was really very good. And the Nationwide assets came with the Cavaliers, and my guess is that if you went back and reconstructed the transaction, those assets were the more valuable set of assets.
I think he said the same thing to us.
Oh, good. All right. He's opening up and talking about the truth in his declining years.
It's taken us 3 years to get him to sit down and do the documentary, so you can imagine what little things have been pried open here. As a businessman, you respect him?
Oh, very much so.
How so?
He is meticulous in understanding all facts of any transaction or any business. He brings a combination of investment bankers, operators, and almost a CFO's understanding to the transaction. And he has a pretty good judgment set with respect to human nature. So he's really a terrific businessman.
Was this the first blind man you'd done business with? And did you know, how far in advance of getting him involved in the camps did you know he was blind?
You know, it's so funny. That would never have crossed my mind to phrase it that way. Isn't that interesting? First of all, I learned that I was supposed to say unsighted, not blind. Okay, I think Gordon and Dick taught me that, or something like it. Or maybe blind's okay. I don't know. I don't think I had dealt extensively with an unsighted person before. I must have, but I can't recall one instance of it, really. And my first impression of Gordon was that, number one, he has affected so many mannerisms that he looks right at you, and it takes a while for the uninitiated to say, this guy is blind. And then he says something like, which invariably, I don't know if this is a family film, but invariably pisses you off, that he says, on page 6, footnote 3, is this guy kidding me? And that's the way he was and has been for the 30 years that I've known him. I think he does it just to throw people off. It's a wonderful characteristic because he not only knows it, but he's read the entire thing and he knows all of the footnotes, and that has always been my impression of him.
I think he employs either 1.5 or 2 full-time people. All they do is read stuff.
Correct. I often think of Gordon with respect to new technology, not through the RP Foundation, Fighting Blindness, but really with respect to books on tape, whether they can be sped up to deal with Gordon's ear, which is trained faster, whether emails that are sent to him can be read to him by technology rather than by assistants. And I just think that technology, with respect to the kinds of things that Gordon is used to doing, are going to be his friend.
Yeah, I'm partially sighted, so is Sean. That's what brought us to this whole thing in the first place, as a matter of fact. But
I could tell with Sean, but I couldn't tell with you.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
But
Sean, he's better than you, Sean.
The point being is that it's
Even though Sean's the executive producer, he doesn't. I've been in Steve Wynn's presence. I've dealt with a lot of, I think, people who are partially sighted.
Do you think in the long or the short run it might be an advantage in some respect in negotiations for him?
I hate to say that. I can't even. No, I don't think so. I think the only advantage is a learned ability to own any subject with which he is going to be involved. And I think perhaps his lack of sight drives him a bit on that point. But I have a sense that he would be that way either way, so to speak. But he's, from that perspective, his determination to own anything he deals with is a remarkable business trait.
His current CFO of his business in Jersey, we interviewed a couple months back, and he said that his first day on the job, he walked into the sheet with like 30, 40 pieces of paper, as he would with anybody he was working for. And now he walks in with one. I said, did you memorize everything? So I've learned that his way is the best way. We can talk on an even footing without me having to look stuff up. If I come in totally memorized, so to speak, then we can talk more as equals. So
that's very discouraging. He's very discouraging.
What kind of man is he? What kind of person is he?
Yeah. Well, he's very a loving father and husband. He's concerned about his wife, his kids, his grandkids, and his siblings. He takes an enormous amount of responsibility with respect to family matters, both personal and financial. And he kind of enjoys mixing it up a little bit personally. For better or for worse, I would usually walk up to him and say, hi, it's Gary Bettman. And he'd say, no, I know it's not. I said, or then, I would say to him, Gordon, do you understand what kind of a shirt Lily put on you today? The shocking pink is horrible. And he always gives it back. So whenever we get together, he says, I miss you. We just visited over Labor Day, and he said, I miss you. We haven't done it much recently, but I told him, don't worry, I'm making notes so we can do it. He's a very nice person. He's fun to be with. He's an extraordinary businessman, and fortunately, I haven't had to call him up and say, Gordon, I need this or that, but I have no doubt whatever the rational request was, Gordon would meet it for a friend.
I've heard he's a very generous man in many respects.
I think, I know that, and he's an arduous worker. The foundation was him. Initially, I know it's now much broader. He's made me come and sit in the dark on those ridiculous dinners where I spill food all over myself. I say, Gordon, do I have to come again? He loves it. I've been to at least 2. Fortunately, the last one I was busy on something else because it annoys me that I'm the one that dips his tie into the soup. I don't understand what's going on there. So it's a very, even that, the foundation dinners are warm and affairs. And Diane and my wife and I always enjoy going and being with Gordon and his family.
I asked him once, I said, it's clear, it's obvious what blindness took away from you, but did it give anything to you? And he said that. He said, that's a really cool question. I said, well, did it give anything to you? He says, yeah, it made me kinder. Is he a kind man?
He's a kind man. On any issue, when it comes time to saying, okay, I know this is a business, but here's an issue that we might want to give on for some personal reason, Gordon, who can be impossible on the business side, and I do mean impossible. You hear that, Gordon? He, on the human side, he will make the accommodation. It's always so. He was, I used to kid him, when he bought his team, he was on every committee that we had to have a committee on. Planning, labor relations, television, executive committee. Indeed, he was the chairman of the board. And this chairman of the board stuff was not, oh, let's do something for the blind guy. This is the man who's going to lead us and is the businessman. And that's when I got to know him, because he would get the first draft of the financial statements, and he was a complete pain in the butt, pushing at us on the footnotes and the like. And he was impossible in collective bargaining. I used to, when we made the final deal in 1999, we were in the office at 4 in the morning, and Russ Granick, then the deputy commissioner, I on the phone with him. And I think I said to Russ, and given my relationship, I probably said to Gordon, would you stop squeezing the last nickels? Let's make the goddamn deal. But Gordon was there, woke him up. Okay, can you get this? Can you get that? Okay, Gordon. And we knew that if we said to him, Gordon, can we have this? He would have said, of course, if all you had to do was ask. But we wouldn't ask, okay? And we went through, we danced around it, and we got a very good deal, and Gordon was doing his job, and he was on top of it, as he always was on top of it.
This was the lockout?
This was the 98-99 lockout, when he was chairman of the board. And head of the Labor Relations Committee as well.
How important was his involvement at that point?
He was running the show. At the end, when anything like that, at 4 in the morning, it's amazing how hard it is to get a quorum. So Gordon was appointed by us as a quorum of 1. And in the short strokes, he was the Labor Relations Committee with which we consulted to make the deal. And he was very supportive and very available and very concerned and very focused on the issues that his partners wanted him to focus on.
Did you think it was not weird is the wrong word, but strange that a man who had never played the sport and basically had not seen the sport in 25 years or 20 years was so deeply involved with the league and so deeply involved in the...
Yeah, it's some of the fun stuff about it. I mean, obviously, I was with Gordon when he was looking at the new uniforms for the Cavs. And Luli was describing the colors to him. And he would say, well, that's really nice. I mean, it's interesting. Actually, I want to go further. I've skied with Gordon, which is really very annoying. I'm lying in a huddle and he's going down the mountain and running into people and saying, why is that man wearing a sign that says blind skier? He obviously can see, otherwise he couldn't ski like that. So no, I don't think, it never really, to me, seemed relevant that whether he played or recently saw a game. He had a fundamental understanding, I think probably when he grew up, because he didn't lose his sight until he was in his, I think, late 20s. So, you know, he knows how to do things which are reflected, or I don't know what the right word is, refracted, or some glow that comes from being around people who enjoy it. So if George liked hockey, then Gordon liked hockey. And if Luli liked the color and could describe it to him, I used to say, boy, the seats in this building are horrible. She did it again, Lily Pink. But I used to call and kid them. I said, it's Lily Blue, Gordon. She did it again. And he would cackle and have a good time on it. But he has an internal mechanism that, to me, allows him to experience. I'm not going to say see, experience things. Lily was recently describing walking poor Gordon through a museum, when she said, "Oh, I really owe him." But I don't think Gordon thinks that she really owes him. And she's has, you can't not discuss Gordon without discussing Lily, who she has been his interpreter. I don't even want to say his. She's not his. He's not his eyes. She's his interpreter of what they are experienced more often than not together, and it's really quite a relationship. And Lily tends to be a little too self-effacing, but she has a strong advocate in me, and as undeserving as Gordon may be of Lily, I think he's getting smarter as he gets older.
The very first interview I was viewing the thing the other day is he said, I married my trophy wife.
Yeah, no, he's
45 years ago.
My goodness, and actually to hear, because Lily hasn't been well, and there have been some incidents that have been, to say hair-raising doesn't even do them justice, but to hear the timbre of Gordon's voice describing what I take to be the threat of loss, it's quite a dramatic experience. But Lily is Lily, and she keeps pushing ahead and doing what she's always done.
How aware are you of the foundation and its intricacies and research and stuff?
I'm pretty aware. You can't go to the dinners without being bombarded by the successes of the foundation I now know the syndromes that come together. I now know about the gene therapy that has restored sight, and I'm not unaware of the possibility, and it's the hope, the dream that between technology and gene mapping, that someday Gordon may be able to see his grandchildren. I don't hold that out as a likelihood, but I think that Gordon himself is sort of doing it, carrying the water for others who come behind him, and it's really heartwarming to see and do, because he's doing it he's not doing it for him, he's doing it selflessly for others. You're disagreeing with me, even the possibility.
No, I agree completely. No.
Oh, okay.
We were fortunate one of his original eye doctors got really diagnosed him, is still practicing in Boston. We talked to him. He said he started the foundation, and Elliot Burson says, you'll never see again, so don't put all this into what you're doing. He goes, absolutely, I know that.
He knows that.
And I said to him, if somebody could wait, okay, if all this research, and it's unfortunately far away for his strain of retinitis pigmentosa, which is almost cruel in many respects. I said, but if it were to happen, what would you do? He said, I don't think I would take it. He said, because being blind is not so bad, but going blind was terrible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go through that.
Well, I've heard the stories associated with his early attempts at treatment. It's brutal. But I'm going to be optimistic, even if you and he aren't.
Anybody deserves it.
Right, the breakthrough, you never know when the breakthrough is going to happen until it happens. And given the two different strains between genetics and technology, but I understand that this particular strain is elusive, would be a kind word to describe it.
You're right.
But Gordon has, he reports in, he's been to Saudi Arabia, he's been all over, and if you ask him what's going on, you don't have to read the annual report of the foundation, because will be happy to give you the précis or the long-form version. And it's absolutely fascinating stuff, and he's mastered it in a really both lay way and a scientific way.
I did a fundraising video for the foundation last year. There's a bunch of kids, and with the proper result, it's very heartwarming. And so we started this process.
Is that the group that some of whom could not see?
Two kids who could not see, yeah.
It's wonderful. It's a showstopper. That's all I can say.
It's kids. So I said, what do you want out of this? He said, number one, it's got to be about the foundation. I said, well, we can't make a documentary about you without making it about the foundation. They're
Right.
inbred. He said, there's one other thing. I want to meet the kids from the fundraising video.
Oh, okay. Even the way we got around to this, we were sitting at a dinner table with Gordon and Lily and Agnes and friends of ours and my wife and I. And Gordon begins this circumlocution about this distant documentary that somebody, I guess he was referring to you, wanted to make, and he had said no. And I think it seemed like an hour and a half later, but it was probably measurable in minutes, would I mind sitting down with this person? I said, Gordon, are you kidding? And actually, that was less than 3 weeks ago, so you move fast. But it's my distinct pleasure to be able to do this.
And the amazing thing, the people I've asked that have not gone, I talked to Wayne Embry the other day, and Gordon was a little hesitant.
Right,
I'm sure you're
right.
aware of. And I said, well, let me call him. They're easier to turn down a stranger than a member of the family.
Nobody will turn you down. Nobody.
Yeah, I mean, he was giggling. I'd love to do that. It was if he was.
But no one's going to tell you the truth like I am.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's wrong with this man? There's got to be something bad about this dude. What is it?
I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything. He's a little bit obsessive compulsive, but aren't we all? We're just obsessive and compulsive about different things. His obsession is, my God, you give him numbers and he's going to own them. That's all. Or actually, you give him anything and he's going to own them. But that's okay.
I asked Louie, how are you on time?
I'm okay.
Okay. I asked Louie, I said, what, stupid question I asked her, what was your first reaction? Well, I was very sad when Gordon was losing his eyesight. I was very upset and very sad. Okay, the thing is nice. But then I felt freed. I went, what? She said, freed. I said, well, you've got to tell me what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about there. She said, well, up until that time, Gordon was in a training program at Chase. He was going to be a banker. He was going to own businesses. And many of the people in our crowd were saying, well, what do you want to do? Be chairman of the board of Merrill Lynch? You want to run Chase Bank? What do you want to do? And then she said, then we were freed not to do that anymore.
Yeah, you
We were
bet.
free to do something else. I said, you were freed up to conquer blindness. She just said, yeah. The common sense of the two.
Yeah, they really, have adapted incredibly well. I mean, I know that any discussion, or at least expressed or implied, has to do with having the means to be able to comfortably navigate the difficulties that lesser people don't have the means to navigate, of lesser means, not lesser people. But I don't think it's an issue in Gordon's case. He would do it however he found life. He would just deal with it, because that's the way Gordon and Lily are, even though he is obsessive and compulsive.
In one or two word statements, give me a bunch of adjectives or words you would attach to Gordon Gunn, could you?
Resourceful. He's warm, generous, determined, intuitive, intelligent, and adaptive. Maybe adaptive and resourceful. I mean, we used to, he goes and sits at basketball games listening on the radio. Come on, Gordon, they're running around in front of you, and you can't see them. I'm experiencing them, and he is. And so we used to set it up at All-Star games the same way it was set up at Cavalier games. Gordon just was so determined to live every moment of the life that was given to him that it has been a joy to watch him do it, even if he is obsessive compulsive. I waited a beat so you could cut that part out.
You at a point, bless your heart, but yours is going to be a very nice outtake reel, I'll tell you that.
Yes, make sure you do a special tape just for Gordon and
We may
Lily,
be forced to do that
because
sooner than later.
he's undeserving of Lily. That's the other thing I want to make sure I say.
You are in the vast majority.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anything we're
Oh
not
yes, and he's a sculptor.
I was just going to say.
I have an owl on my side gate that I look at every morning when I leave through the side door. And it's a small owl. He's since been making much nicer owls for other people that are larger. But I'm not. It's not a big deal for
I
me.
think
I
there's
don't.
a trade-in program.
Yeah,
Trade-in
that's what I thought.
to trade up for a larger owl.
He sold his team and he's moved on and he's making owls for his new friends and they're larger. But I forgive him. I think that. But he's so he's talented. I left out talented, creative, resourceful. All. They're all true.
I asked him. I said, "Do you like to sculpt, love to sculpt, or need to sculpt?" So I need to.
Yeah.
Since I've been doing it for 20, 25 years, so I really need
If I brought all of the programs that were available to people and tried to sculpt like this unsighted man, it would be just a lump of whatever medium I was working in. And here he's got these most intricate, and I'm assuming you'll be showing a accompanying photo/video of the owls and the various other beautiful items he sculpted. It's incredible. And
The one I was most taken was the whale's fluke, the whale's tail. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I assumed, okay, let me ask you a question. Where do you think the inspiration for that came from? How do you think he sculpted that, or why? Any idea?
I can't even imagine.
I assumed he probably saw it when he was in the Navy or when he was a kid. He saw a whale, No, a whale washed up on the beach near their place in Nantucket 10, 12 years ago. And everybody was turned out to try to push this animal back into the sea, trying to save its life. And here he is, down there with his kids.
Pushing.
And
he felt it.
He felt it. And from that came that wonderful sculpture.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it's trite or not to say that people who are not sighted develop their tactile senses in other ways. I've never experienced, so I don't know, but one gets a sense that Gordon is about as sharp with respect to all other senses that you could possibly be.
About a quarter of the known use of your brain, of anyone's brain, is for sight. And it's apparently, if you are blindfolded, within 10 or 12 days, for a long time it's felt that part of the brain would atrophy. Now, it actually gets somewhat larger and takes over, so it assists in hearing and memory and tactile.
The only thing he can't do is he can't feel the colors in which Luli is dressing him. So he has no idea how ridiculous he looks all the time.
On your iPhone, there's an app now.
Is there an app?
Yeah.
It talks. I see. See, I told you the technology would work.
There you go.
Gordon, you are wearing a pink and orange plaid shirt. It's another joke that Luli has played on you. This is your iPhone speak. This is Siri. I get it. Perfect.
You do a lousy imitation of Siri.
It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Indeed. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, bless your heart. Thank you. So, Sean, I'm sorry. Anything?
Sean, what do you got?
Just where we're here at NBA headquarters, could you talk maybe a little bit about, do you think Gordon impacted the league as an owner in his time? Certainly.
Yeah, I would say that Gordon brought management techniques through hiring of general managers, basketball people, coaches, drafting, scouting, and the like. Of course, his best contribution to the league was having a team that was so lousy that he won LeBron James in the lottery. But that's a separate issue. He really did. No, I'm having too much fun here, but knowing that Gordon will get to see some of the outtakes. But no, he really brought a professional level to the building of the building, to fitting it into its surroundings, to taking care of the locker rooms, and then to worrying about the comfort and the growth of both his players and his fans, his consumers. So he made a very valuable contribution. At the time, when people were busy building palaces for arenas of 1 million square feet, he was, quote, constrained, I think, to a relatively small footprint for the then Gund Arena, and it looked great, and it fit in perfectly, and he did a great job. So there were no, there was no waste, and there was this intense caring about the community that was in Cleveland, and he was going to give it his best, across, all of the business and basketball functions that you could have. And I was saddened, of course, when he decided to sell the team, but he actually, I think, wanted to spend even more time with a combination of his grandchildren and his foundation, the foundation And so you can't wish anyone other than the best under those circumstances, and I always have.
I interviewed a researcher here about a month ago, and I said, "Do you think somebody said, when the history of genetic research, especially, is written maybe 20, 30 years now?" I said, Gordon Gund might be one of the fathers of this research, even though he's not a researcher, obviously. This guy goes, something. I think honestly, the entire field of genetic research is probably 10 to 15 years ahead of where it might be because of him. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment for one man.
No, that's extraordinary. And what happens is these things happen all over the world at different speeds. But I do think because of Gordon's sort of inherent understanding and generosity that these things are not trade secrets, but rather trade sharings, that he moves things along in an incredible way. There are other areas that I think are going to benefit from this, brain science and so many other things that are going on, but he's at the center of it. I have no doubt about it. Sean, anything else?
Ron?
Good.
All right.
I think that was great.
David,
Okay, thank you.
Be careful getting up.
Stand by.